Welcome back to the Green Witch Homestead. It is unfortunately time to pull out the garden. We are going to be pulling out the sweet potatoes. The loofah gourds are done. They did take over. I planted 4 loofah gourds on this trellis, and as you can see, they covered a large portion of the trellis. I did have 1 loofah gourd that was growing in my tomato beds. They are done for the season. You can see here that the plants are dying all on their own. It's just that time of year. I did get a few that didn't pollinate, so those will just go into the compost. I don't have to worry about seeds. They won't have any viable seeds at this size. Basically, I just pulled the roots out of the soil, and I'm going to let them dry on the trellis until they're crumbly enough that I can just pull them off. So with the sweet potato beds, what we've done is I've cut all of the vines off, so they're all right there. I've still got to do this section here. And then once all of the vines are cut back, we'll go through and be able to pull out the sweet potatoes because we can see them a little easier. We're going to lay them up on top of the soil to dry the dirt off them. You don't want to wash them and you don't want to brush them because you could risk scratching the skin. So we're just going to pull them out, let them sit up here, dry a little bit in the sun so we can kind of dust them off a bit before we take them inside to cure them. Now, you don't necessarily have to cure your sweet potatoes. If you want a sweet potato that tastes like the ones that you get at the grocery store with that really bright orange flesh and that sweet, sweet taste, then you will want to cure them. But you can eat them straight out of the ground. They're like a slightly sweeter version of a potato. And unlike a lot of other things that you cure from your garden, like squash and potatoes and garlic and onions, you're not curing a sweet potato to help its storage process. Sweet potatoes actually will store very well as long as they don't get wet. They like high humidity, but they don't like moisture. The thing about the sweet potatoes, the reason why you cure a sweet potato is you're building the sugars, you're building that flavor profile. So you're literally turning the starches in the potato into sugars. And the reason that it requires a certain method to do it, depending on where you grow, is they are naturally a tropical plant. So in their native habitat, when they're pulled out of the ground, it's very hot and very humid, and that's what gives them that sweet taste. To mimic that here in Missouri, though, it's a little trickier because they come out late in the fall, and it's no longer hot and humid around here this time of year. What's nice about the sweet potato plants is not only do you get the delicious tubers and roots for you to eat, but the plant itself is also very edible. The leaves are a very good substitute for spinach. They're not super tasty fresh like this, but they cook down and steam like any way that you would cook collard greens. You can cook sweet potato greens. They are very delicious. They are also very nutrient for our animals. So a lot of this root mass will go to the pigs as well as the chickens and some even into our compost pile. What I've been doing is finding the stalks like this and left them around them. The perils of digging up sweet potatoes. Holy cow. Oh my goodness, look how fat he is. We're gonna have to move you. We're disturbing this dirt. We'll put you somewhere else. Well, it took us about 45 minutes or so to dig the beds. We got quite a few, and we got some pretty good sized ones. I'd have to say officially this is the biggest sweet potato. We will weigh this one and a couple others because they may be contenders for the largest sweet potato that we have this year. This one is probably the most perfect looking giant sweet potato I've ever seen or grown. This is our harvest. And I've got them all laid out here. There are some smaller ones in here, just little ones. These will be good for making like sweet potato mash and stuff like that. Most of them are relatively good size, and we do have some big buggers in here. So that's our sweet potato harvest. Starting from 2 single sweet potatoes, that's pretty good yield. We haven't weighed it all, but I'm gonna say there's probably close to 100 pounds or more of sweet potatoes right there. So I'm happy with it. Could we have more? Yes. This was an experiment to see how they did in the raised beds. We have not had success growing them in the grounds or in the hay or straw bale methods that other people use. So the raised beds seem to be working really good. They do take over, and you have to be prepared to dedicate an entire raised bed for the entire growing season to them. But in all honesty, if that's the results we're gonna get, I'm okay with that. So it's been about a month, maybe 5 weeks since we pulled the sweet potatoes out of the ground, and I just want to show you, they look fairly similar to how they used to look. We have completed the curing process. Now, I don't have any footage to show you of how I cure my potatoes because I did it a little differently this year. We had some really weird temperatures, so kind of had to alternate how we cure our potatoes. It actually made it a little easier for us. Basically what we do when we cure our sweet potatoes is we take a grow mat or a heat mat for seed starting. If you can get one that has a temperature control, that's even better. And we take a big tote, like a plastic tote with a lid, and we'll put our sweet potatoes in there with a big glass jar that's full of water. That glass jar sits on the bottom, and we put our sweet potatoes around that jar. And then what you do is you put that tote on the heat mat. The jar inside is going to help with the water, and then you want to put your lid on your tote but not tight, so you're just going to kind of sit it on with a little gap and check it. You want to check it every day, because if condensation is building up on the side of your tote, moisture is too high, and you want to take that lid off for a little bit and let the moisture out a bit. It's really easy. It sounds very complicated. It's really easy to do. We got fortunate enough this year that we had some strange weather, and for the first couple weeks after we pulled the sweet potatoes out of the ground, it was hot and sunny. So all we did was just put the water in the tote and put the tote outside in a sunny location. Now, we've already been eating off of these, so I'd say about a good half of what we pulled out of the garden is gone already. But these are our sweet potatoes. They are a little bit drier looking than they did when they first came out of the ground. You can tell they're still dirty. We don't clean them off until we're gonna get ready to cook them. They're in here and they're cured. We're to that point now though where the temperatures are dropping, so these are gonna start coming inside and be stored in our food pantry in the house so that they don't get frozen. Because if they freeze, then you're just out of luck and you're gonna lose your crop. All of the smaller potatoes that we collected out of the garden we've had inside, and we've been using them for like making mashed sweet potatoes and making into little fritters. There's a few here that I'm kind of excited, like this one, for example. I'm really excited to get inside and get it on the scale and see how much it weighs. As I'm sure you guys may have noticed, we haven't been on YouTube for a little while. There was a lot of changes that we made this year to how we're growing food, with changing up for storage for ourselves and our family members, as opposed to selling a lot of our produce. We had a lot of things that required our attention, and I just didn't have time to pull the camera out. But I will be filming a whole lot more often. I also do have a TikTok channel that I started, and it's kind of exploded. It's also called The Green Witch Homestead. You're welcome to go check it out. We do a lot of more gardening tips and tricks on TikTok. So if you're interested in that, the link is in our bio, or just go onto TikTok and search The Green Witch Homestead. I want to compare these sweet potatoes. We need to see, these are the two biggest that we got. They could be pretty close, but let's go ahead and put them on the scale and see which one's bigger. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. We're gonna start with Heath's sweet potato, and it's set at pounds and ounces. So it's 2 pounds and 2.1 ounces. My sweet potato, 2 pounds and 3.2 ounces. They look a whole lot different in size, but they're only an ounce difference in weight, and mine just happened to be a little bit bigger, so haha. 2 pounds of sweet potato, that's a lot. That's a lot of food, and I do definitely recommend that you guys give sweet potatoes a try. They're really a very easy crop to grow. The hardest part is getting started on them. This is the time of year that you want to be starting to source your sweet potatoes. This is when you're going to want to start your sweet potato slips, because this is the longest process. Starting sweet potato slips is really easy. It's just time consuming. So you need at least a month or 2 for the slips to start growing on the potato, and then you need at least 3 or 4 weeks for the slips to grow their own roots. And then what I like to do with mine is I actually put them into a pot inside and let the roots kind of get used to being in the soil before I move them out into the garden. You don't want to plant them outside until there is no more danger of frost, and that's still a couple months away for a lot of people. but these are a very slow to get started crop. Once you've got those slips and they're rooted and they're ready to go into the ground, this is the easiest crop you will ever grow. The only thing that you have to do is make sure that your soil is nice and loose and airy. Don't plant them in the ground if you have really clay soil. We did ours in a raised bed this year, and you just plant them and forget them. And then at the end of summer, you can dig them up and you get this surprise, beautiful crop of delicious food. Thanks for watching, guys. I really missed you. I hope that you are still kicking around and enjoying our videos, and I do promise I will be posting a whole lot more often. So remember to get out there and get your hands dirty.